Hello and welcome or welcome back to another episode of Shoulders Down. This is the first solo episode I've done in a while, and to be honest, I have been avoiding this episode. The amount of times I have pushed the bullet on my calendar that says record the episode addressing the comments about the Biggest Loser debate. Like I've been pushing it down to the next day, to the next day, to the next day for like months now. And that's because it's quite unpleasant and I kind of just want to like put this whole Biggest Loser debate, Jillian Michaels debate, whatever, behind me. But I also want to address some of the most common comments that I saw. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing in today's solo episode. Now, if you're like, what is this Biggest Loser Jillian Michaels thing she's talking about? To get you up to speed, in sometime in January, I was a part of a debate for a very popular YouTube channel called Jubilee. It's a very inflammatory channel where they stage debates. So I was cast as part of this debate where the way that it was presented to me was one quote unquote health expert against a bunch of body positivity advocates. I was, of course, cast on the body positivity side. And Jillian Michaels, who is a celebrity trainer that got really big from her time on The Biggest Loser, she was the person that we were debating. I will just leave it at that. I'll link the previous episodes I've done on this if you want to hear how I decided to do this, what the process was like actually filming it, what it was like seeing back the edited version and what they left out, what kinds of things were really frustrating about the experience, whether or not I even think that it had a positive effect overall. All of those questions I answer in a couple different episodes that I've already done on this topic. So I will link all of those in the show notes. The purpose of today's episode is to address some of the most common comments that I received in the weeks, months since doing this recording. So it came out, the video, we shot the footage in, I want to say, end of January, and it came out mid-March. And as I record this, it is June 2nd. So that means that there was like basically all of April, all of May. It's been like 2 months, 2.5 months. Yeah, I try not to be too in the weeds of the comments, but some of the comments I was getting were unavoidable. I was receiving comments in my email inbox. I was receiving comments on YouTube videos. I post all my podcasts on YouTube. So even if I wasn't checking the actual comments on the Jubilee Jillian Michaels video itself, they were finding their way to me. I even had a sort of colleague friend send me a video from Instagram where I was stitched with my piece of the debate next to, someone making comments, negative comments about what I had to say during the debate. So all this to say, like, I have not been in the weeds with the comments, and even still, they have found their way to me. Even my mom the other day sent me, one of her friends saw a reel on Facebook, classic. Of course, I just feel like that's where my mom's friends would see this. And they were like, oh my God, is this Leah? And so I clicked the reel and then saw the comments on the reel. So as much as I tried to stay out of the comments just for my own mental health, I ultimately got a good sense of what were some of the main things that were being said specifically about me and what I had to contribute to this debate. I am not going to speak to the comments that were being made about the debate in general. It was over an hour long. There were several participants, and I just feel like it makes the most sense for me to respond to the things that I said and the comments that people had about what I had to say, given my positioning as a dietitian and the points that I brought up. So that's exactly what we're going to do today in this podcast episode. I want to say one more thing before we dive in, which is if in listening to this, it gets you really curious about the Jubilee video, please watch at your own risk. It is ultimately a very, I believe, harmful piece of content. I think, though, yes, there's my voice and a couple therapists who have great things to say. I think the overall net impact of the video is harmful. And Jillian spewing her hate and a lot of misinformation is harmful, especially for someone who is on a journey to heal their relationship with food and body, which if you're here, that's probably why. So I really wouldn't recommend it. If your curiosity gets the best of you, go ahead, just use caution, take care of yourself, and know that it is like, it's ugly. It's ugly. The comments are ugly. What's said, what comes out of her mouth is ugly. It's not, it's not butterflies and rainbows. With that said, in this podcast episode, I will be addressing comments that have inherent weight stigma in them, as you could probably expect, coming from people who have a lot of criticism towards the anti-diet, intuitive eating, weight neutral, health at every size movement. So if that feels like it wouldn't be good given where you're at right now, maybe skip this episode altogether. Okay, all the disclaimers out of the way. There are four main comments that I plan to respond to. Now, actually, after a few weeks went by, I was able to go into the comments and like Command F, like search the word dietitian. I was the only dietitian in the video. So when anyone spoke about, oh, the dietitian saying this, the dietitian saying that, I knew they were talking about me. So I was able to go into the comments after giving myself a lot of care and space. I went in there and I summarized the four most common things I was seeing people saying about what I had to say. And that's exactly what we're going to get into. So let's go right into it. The first thing that feels like the most glaring, obvious thing that people had to say about my piece in this video. There was one part in the video where I say to Jillian something like, I work with people in their relationships with food and I don't work with them on weight loss because I believe that's unethical. Now, that was probably one of the most rage-inducing things that I said, as far as like for the people in the comments. I stand by saying that and we're going to unpack it. But there were a lot of comments specifically about that piece that I said. So some people, one commenter said, and they quoted me, I don't encourage weight loss because it's unethical is the most diabolical statement I've heard in 2026 so far. And that's saying something. So someone said that. Someone else said, did the dietitian just say she doesn't encourage weight loss because it's unethical? That's wild. I'll just leave it at those. There were, trust me when I say there were many more that were people who were quite upset about me saying that I don't encourage intentional weight loss because I believe it's unethical. So to clear some of this up, first of all, if you are a person who loses weight, it's not that I have any problem with you or that I judge you. I am talking about as a professional, I do not agree with encouraging a person on an intentional weight loss journey. That means that I don't agree with saying, here's your diet plan, here's your calorie plan, let's weigh you, let's get you down to your quote unquote goal weight. I do not agree with those things. And the reason why, exactly as I said in the debate, I stand by this. The reason why I don't agree with those things is because I believe it is unethical to lead someone down a path of intentional weight loss because the research is so clear in showing that most pursuits of intentional weight loss result in gaining back all the weight that was initially lost, if not more. Often it's even more. And this process of losing and gaining and losing and gaining is called weight cycling. And we know that weight cycling is an independent risk factor for so many different disease outcomes, things like heart disease, diabetes, issues with hormones, and many other different negative health outcomes. So I am always thinking about the long term. I want to support someone and their well-being for the long term. And that is why I will not work with someone on intentional weight loss. Now, if someone comes to me and says, I just really want to lose weight, it feels like it would help me feel better and have more confidence and be more accepted. I have no problem with that desire. In fact, like, yeah, I would be surprised if you didn't have that desire. We live in a very weight stigmatizing world where there's this idea that being smaller or skinnier makes a person morally superior, and that is so fucked up and so untrue. And still, it's a thing that's happening in our society. So I, of course, understand the desire for intentional weight loss. And in my practice, I work with someone on, yeah, tell me more about that desire. What does it feel like would change about your life? Yeah, it's so valid to have this desire. We can sit with the grief that comes with maybe never having that body that diet culture promised you was just on the other side of hard work and discipline. So, I am not here to ignore that that's a real and valid desire. However, I will not work with someone on taking steps to try and achieve that desire of intentional weight loss. Instead, I will look at the desire for intentional weight loss, try and understand what's underneath it. Oh, do you want more confidence? Oh, do you feel like you want more connections? Okay, does it feel like intentional weight loss, it would lead you to be more active? Like, what are the wants beneath the want? Because usually intentional weight loss is like here. And then, well, it's a podcast. You can't see what I'm doing when I say here, but usually intentional weight loss is like the tip of the iceberg. But if we go a few layers under, we can get information about what is it that you really want. And I'm so much more interested and concerned with helping a client get to the thing that's a few layers under because so often, if we're working on that superficial level, a client will achieve intentional weight loss and still not feel like they have the life they want because it was never actually about the weight. It was about something a few layers under. So, all of this is to say, you are not wrong for desiring intentional weight loss. In fact, I have a podcast episode titled, You Are Not Wrong for Desiring Intentional Weight Loss. I will link it here in the show notes. I do not judge you if that's a desire you have. In fact, like I couldn't understand more. It's really hard, especially in the age of GLP-1s and this really compelling marketing. Of course, that's a desire you hold. It is so valid. I do not judge a person for having this desire. However, as a professional, I feel it is unethical to work with someone and promise them intentional weight loss or help them to try to achieve intentional weight loss because I want to do no harm. And the research shows us that more often than not, this results in gaining back the weight that was initially lost, weight cycling, disordered eating, full-blown eating disorders, feeling like your brain is so occupied with thoughts of food all the time, or food noise, as we're hearing the term be called these days. And to me, that's not ethical. And I stand by that. So people had a lot of problems with that. And I get it. I think that there's a lot of cognitive dissonance, especially coming from a healthcare system or mainstream way of relating to health, where we think weight loss is the most important thing for health. Weight loss is the most important thing for a person's longevity. And that's a big lie. It's just not true. So, yeah, it makes sense to me that people had this comment because it's still the mainstream messaging. I stand by what I said. However, I want it to be known, as I've said a few times, though I personally feel it's unethical to work with a client on intentional weight loss or to encourage intentional weight loss, I do not judge you if that is something you desire. In fact, like, I really understand this. It makes a lot of sense if this is a desire you are holding. This brings me to the next point. So, as I spoke about, one of the main reasons that I don't encourage intentional weight loss is because we know that more often than not, it results in gaining back more of the weight than you initially lost. And this is called weight cycling. So, the next most kind of common comment that I saw was people saying something like, well, if she did her job well, then people wouldn't weight cycle. So this was them trying to defend the or counter the stance of, yeah, one of the big reasons why I don't support intentional weight loss is because of weight cycling. So then people were coming back and saying, well, if you did your job well, people wouldn't weight cycle. So one of the more specific comments, just to give you an example, someone's quoting Jillian saying this. So I guess Jillian said it and people were just like quoting it back in the comments. Someone saying, if you're doing your job, they shouldn't have to weight cycle. Quote to the dietitian, LOL, get 'em, Jillian. Someone said that. So there was a bunch of other comments like that too. Now, to break this one down, I almost wish it was as simple as a person doing their job well or not. It's not. It's absolutely not. And I say I wish it was because like weight and body image can be so complicated. If it was just a matter of like having a dietitian who does their job really well, perhaps it would be less complicated. But there are so many factors at play that determine the size and shape of someone's body, things that have nothing to do with the dietitian, and even just like the premise of doing your job well. Like, what does that mean? To me, doing my job well means helping a client get to a place where they have more peace in their brain, where they're able to feel consistently nourished and energized, where they trust themselves around food, where they're able to be more present in their day-to-day life, their social life, and their connections and their relationships, and all of their brain space isn't being stolen by food, where they feel like they're able to care for their body and respect their body and treat their body as they would treat a friend's body or a child's body, or, a loved one's body. To me, that's what it means to do my job well. And the people who I work with, those are their goals. They're like, I want to feel normal with food. I don't want to binge all the time. I don't want to be thinking about this all the time. I don't want to live a life where I can't be spontaneous because doing anything that's like off plan completely dysregulates me. I want a life that is peaceful with food and body image. So this comment really hinges on this idea that like all anyone would ever be after is intentional weight loss and maintaining intentional weight loss. That is not my job. Like, there are weight loss dietitians who probably would judge their success by how much weight they're able to get a client to lose. Are they judging their success by whether or not the client is keeping it off? I don't know. But the problem with this comment is it's hinging on this idea that doing your job well means making someone lose weight and keeping them at that weight. So, though my clients often have the desire for weight loss, they're able to say, like, yes, I want this, but I also really want peace and I really want ease and I really want to eat intuitively and not feel so possessed by food. And I share with them up front, like, that's what I'm going to work with you on. We'll work on the body image stuff that comes up as a result, but I never promise weight loss. It's not the job that I'm here to do. And even for someone who does promise weight loss, it's not about how well they're doing their job if people are weight cycling. It's a matter of biology. It's a matter of what the way human bodies are wired. When we lose weight, the brain goes, oh shit, like that was a risk to our survival. Our energy needs maybe weren't being met, or maybe we were being restricted, or certain food groups were being restricted. As a result, your brain slows down your metabolism and is like, okay, we need to conserve the energy that we are getting because we're not getting as much right now. It also ramps up thoughts about food, specifically thoughts about energy dense, aka calorie dense foods, which can often result in a binge or eating past comfortable fullness. So these aren't personal flaws. If you're a person who has lost a bunch of weight and gained it back, that's not a personal flaw. It's not a flaw of the dietitian. It's a feature of how the human body works. It's not a, I love the saying, like, it's not a bug, it's a feature. I think that's it. But yeah, it's you're not defective, and neither is whatever nutrition professional who worked with you, if you did work with on, this is the body doing what it's programmed to do. And even deeper, this is the body trying to keep you safe, which I just think is so cool and important to remember. So, yeah, got a lot of that. If she was doing her job well, then people wouldn't weight cycle. And the two biggest things from that is, one, that was never the job I came here to do, to promise weight loss and help people keep weight off. And the other thing is, it's not about how well a person is doing their job. It's not about how disciplined you are. Gaining weight back and therefore weight cycling is the default because of how our bodies are wired. Also, one other thing I'm just realizing as I'm saying all this, the irony is when I do my job, people do stop weight cycling because they're finally no longer restricting and they're no longer dieting. They're honoring their body, allowing themselves to eat what they crave, meeting their energy needs. And as a result, they're not swinging the pendulum from restriction to binging, restricting to binging, which often also goes with losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight. So my clients do stop weight cycling. It's just that doesn't always mean that they lose weight. But often with intuitive eating, we do see like weight stabilizing. So it's just kind of an irony of that comment. All right. The third thing was people were mad that I was saying that weight is not an indicator of health. Of course, people were mad about this. What else is new? One of the comments, someone said, a dietitian arguing that being quote unquote obese is not unhealthy blows my mind. So this person saying the fact that I would say there's nothing wrong with being in a bigger body, I would never use the word obese, but that's what the commenter said. The fact that I would say that there's nothing wrong with that, and it doesn't mean that that person is inherently in poor health because of the weight in and of itself. That was apparently bonkers to this commenter. And again, I understand in our mainstream healthcare system, again, we're taught weight is an indicator of health. There's so much to say on this one, but I, of course, stand by it. Weight in and of itself is not an indicator of health. Often being higher weight is correlated with a bunch of different negative health outcomes, but there are many other factors that can explain the negative health outcomes, such as weight stigma, medical weight stigma, things like the stress levels that come with constantly facing the oppression that comes with being in a larger body, things like having a history of weight cycling. Most people who live in larger bodies do have a history of weight cycling. So there are many different factors that could explain why being higher weight is often correlated with negative health outcomes, but it's not proven that it's the fat in and of itself. And we know this because there are people in larger bodies with a ton of what, mainstream medical system would call excess fat, which I have problems with that because like what even is excess? Like everyone has a different amount of fat genetically on their body that their body's happy at, that their body is in homeostasis at that point. But anyway, there are people with quote unquote excess fat that are perfectly healthy based on like their labs, their vitals, all the different biomarkers. And there are people in thin bodies who are very lean and have minimal excess fat and still have different negative health outcomes, whether it's, you know, high blood sugar or high cholesterol or diabetes, like any of these different things. So the weight in and of itself is not an indicator of health. If you want more on this, I have an episode called Five Reasons Why Your Weight Doesn't Determine Your Health. I'm going to link that because I go on such a deep dive on exactly what I'm saying here. The whole like correlation doesn't equal causation. I talk about this all the time, but I just felt like I had to address it in this episode because it was one of the comments that I saw a lot. Okay, the last thing, which I have to say, this was probably the hardest and most upsetting for me. The last comment category comes from other dietitians who were upset by the way that I represented the field. I have heard that there's like a Reddit thread about me, and because this video is huge, it had like over 6 million views, and I was the only dietitian in it. Um, there were several comments I saw from other dietitians. Earlier, I mentioned a colleague who sent me a video from Instagram. I'm not on Instagram, but she sent it to me. And in that video, another dietitian stitched a clip from me in the debate and then said some not so nice things about me. So there's this category of comments that I felt like I had to include in here, which is the comments I got from other dietitians. And I think the reason why this felt so hard is because it just feels like our field like tearing each other down. And like, yes, there are people in the field with very different perspectives. There are a whole kind of camp of weight centric dietitians who think that weight does determine health and who put people on meal plans and have people track calories and macros and do things that I would consider to be things that promote disordered eating. There are different classes, and then there's this whole anti-diet, intuitive eating, health at every size um, approach. And so, yeah, it's a thing in our field, and it's probably a thing in many fields, different perspectives and within the field. And I get it. People are allowed to have different perspectives and they're even allowed to criticize other perspectives. But people tearing me down, using me as content, that just felt pretty shitty. And it was hard to see. It felt like, a lot of dietitians are women and women tearing each other down feels like it's just so ugly and unsupportive to like the greater good of trying to lift women up and we've worked so hard to have a voice and to not shit on each other. Um, So yeah, I don't have like that much profound stuff to say about it. I'll read you one of the comments I got, which someone wrote. As a registered dietitian, I'm disgusted to hear another dietitian on a large platform state that it is unethical to try to lose weight. I am constantly disappointed by my profession and the virtue signaling that happens when it comes to the conversation of weight loss versus the actual science. So yeah, I mean, I get that that one didn't even upset me that much. It was more so this dietitian who posted a video of me on Instagram showing the clip and then basically being like, this dietitian says that she can't help you lose weight, but I can. Come work with me, sign up for my program, like using me as like marketing. And when I was younger and on Instagram, maybe there was a time where I would have done something like this, but now I just see it as like there's no reason to tear other people down to lift up your voice and your message, and I hope to really not do that. Like, am I tearing down the weight normative paradigm? Yes, but I hope to never come across as tearing down an individual who does that work because I'm not here to do that. Like, sure, they're doing what they believe is ethical and supporting the clients that want to come to them for those things, and that's really like whatever, like it's okay. Um, but yeah, these comments from other dietitians I thought were hard. And I get it. Maybe this dietitian who commented was probably someone who works with folks on intentional weight loss. I didn't look her up, so I don't know. So I get that me saying on a very big platform that I believe it's unethical to encourage intentional weight loss could be harmful for her messaging or her business even. And yeah, I get that could be activating. One thing in the comment though is that she wrote, hearing a dietitian on a large platform state that it is unethical to try to lose weight. Like that is what she was disgusted by. And I didn't say that. I didn't say it's unethical to try and lose weight. I said as a dietitian, I find it to be unethical to encourage intentional weight loss. People can do whatever they want. Like if someone wants to try to lose weight, sure, whatever. But as a professional, having seen the research and knowing what I know at this point, I believe that encouraging intentional weight loss would be doing harm, and I don't want to do harm. So it's not that I'm saying it's unethical to try and lose weight. A person can do whatever they want. It's as a professional to encourage intentional weight loss. I think that nuance is important, and how she worded her comment kind of construed it a little bit. So that's a bummer. And yeah, there's different sides of this field, and if ever someone's like, look at the research or whatever, I hear that. And I often always encourage people to look at their own lived experience. Many of my clients have tried many, many, many times to lose weight, and the proof is in the pudding. They've lost and regained, or they've lost and been smaller but felt miserable, and it's taken up all of their brain space. And they didn't have as much energy, and they were kind of constantly binging or thinking about food. And so, it doesn't take even a lot of research to say like this isn't working, like this isn't feeling good or sustainable. I'm not feeling peace, and I want to try something else. To recap, in this episode, we talked about four of the most common pieces of, I'll say feedback, to put it nicely, I got from folks in the wake of my debut on Jubilee in this Jillian Michaels versus the body positivity movement debate. Those four most common kind of groups of comments were one, people being mad that I said I don't encourage weight loss because I believe it's unethical. Two, people saying that if I was doing my job well, then the clients I work with wouldn't weight cycle or weight cycling wouldn't happen. Three, people were mad that I said that weight is not an indicator of health. And lastly, there were some other dietitians who have very different views than me who were angry with the things I had to say on behalf of our field. I hope that this episode gave you some insights into some of the maybe rebuttals I have for different comments that often come from the more weight normative lens, which is like the more like diet culture centric lens. I hope that you enjoyed listening to this. Again, if you decide to listen to the Jubilee video, listen at your own risk. It is ugly. I don't know what else to say. Okay, I'm glad I recorded this. I was putting it off for so long, and it just felt so unpleasant to even dig into the comments, but I did it. So, yay, you'll hear from me again with another episode in 2 weeks. We're still on our every other week publishing schedule. That is all for today. Thanks so much for being here, and I will talk to you in our next episode.